hitting your approach shots into the greens is much easier from the fairways versus the rough. And that's why in this video, we're gonna show you 3 on-course tips that you can use next time you play to help you hit more fairways. Being able to hit your drive at a good distance down the hole and be confident that it's going to be in or around the fairway is an important skill to have if you're looking to lower your scores. And that's what we're covering in this particular video. Just before we get started, I have to say a huge thank you to the Warwickshire Golf and Country Club, which is the golf course that you see behind me. The Forest of Arden, where I usually coach, is currently in a phased reopening, not fully open yet. I wasn't able to use the golf course, so I reached out to the Warwickshire and they were incredibly accommodating and allowed me to use the golf courses. Well, I've actually got 2 golf courses here, so big thank you to them. If you are local or in the area, I would highly recommend coming here. They are taking visitors. I will link their website down in the description box below. So how can you hit more fairways? Now, we're not actually going to cover any technical aspects in this video, more on-course tips. And the good thing with these is you can take them to the course next time you play. So let's get started with tip number 1. This is a really important one, and almost, as to be honest, all 3 of these are going to be a relatively obvious one, but I'd ask you to ask yourself, how often do you actually do this? And tip number 1 is to play your shot shape. And that could be your shot shape that you've historically hit, or it could be just that particular day that you're hitting. So what do we mean by play your shot shape? Well, let's say you're a handicapped golfer who struggles with a left to right fade or slice. You've done that for the last 5 years, and let's say 70 to 80% of your drives tend to curve off to the right. You have to play with that shot shape on that day. It's no good standing there aiming straight down the middle of the fairway and then complaining when that ball curves right into those trees. If you're looking to change your shot shape, that is what the practice area and the drive range is for. On the golf course, your job is to get the ball in the fairway the best way you can. So if you are that typical fader or slicer, you're going to be aiming up the left and you're going to be allowing that ball to curve back to the middle. If it doesn't, that's fine, that's golf. We're always going to hit bad shots, but you're giving yourself the greatest chance of hitting that shot. For me, at the moment with my driver, my miss is typically a little bit right. It doesn't tend to curve, it's a little bit more of a push or a block. So we can see the marker post out there, which is the center of the fairway. I'm going to be actually aiming my ball more up to the left of that marker post. If I hit it dead straight, I should be just in the left rough. That's not really a problem. But the likelihood is I'm going to push this slightly right of target and I'm actually going to be in the fairway. So the first little tip to really help you hit more fairways is to play your shot shape. Tip number 2 is all about intent and focus. So I would love you to get a little bit more specific with what you're trying to do. The end result, I think we're all happy with. We're looking to get the ball from the tee box into the fairway. But how is it going to do that? So I really want you to be specific with your target and your ball flight. So let's cover what we mean by that. So my targets would be, I'm going to have 3 targets for this particular drive. I'm going to have specifically where I want that ball to end up. So we'll use that marker post as that. That's specifically where I want this ball to end up. Now, because of my typical shot shape, which is a little bit of a kind of push, where am I actually going to aim? And again, that needs to be very, very specific. So I'm going to pick literally the top of the tree on the left, the sort of highest point of that tree that I can see. And again, it's a very, very specific point. It's not just an area. The final thing I would have as my target would be on the ground, a point which is on my target line. So again, I'm picking something on the ground here which I want my ball to start over. That point is going to help me with my alignment because I can align the club face to that point. I can trace that up to that tree and I can start and build my setup around that. Once I have those 3 points, I can start to clearly visualize how my board is going to get from its starting point to the fairway. I can visualize the start line, the trajectory, the curve, what's it going to do when it lands. I want to really immerse myself in that shot, and I want to be standing over this golf ball with an incredibly clear vision of what I'm actually trying to do, because there's a lot more chance of me executing that if it's clear in my mind. So the second point would be get very, very specific with your targets and build a very, very clear image of what that good shot is going to look like. And finally, tip number 3 is tempo. This is incredibly important, and hopefully in this little tip we're going to get you to think about tempo in a slightly different way. As we progress through a round of golf, it's quite common for our tempo to change. We can get a little quicker, we can get a little slower. That can be depending on how you're playing. It can be depending on a group of golfers behind you. It could be some golfers in front of you playing. So it can be incredibly changeable through a round of golf. So when I think of tempo, when most golfers think of tempo, they think of their golf swing and having a quick or a slow tempo. I want you to think about your tempo as you start your walk in. Let me give you an example. Let's say this is me hitting a good drive. I'm going to start in this particular point here. I'm going to visualize my ball flight, and I'm going to have a certain number of paces to get to that golf ball, and those paces are going to have a certain pace to them, a tempo. So if we just go through this, and this would be me hitting a successful drive. So we'd have 1, 2, 3 paces, and they had a certain tempo. Now let's say I do that through the first few holes and I start to hit some good drives. But let's think of another scenario, and this happens all too often. We stand there on the tee and there's a group of golfers in front of us and they're potentially playing a little bit slower, and we're standing here and we're waiting, and they call you through. So what happens? Well, do you take those same number of steps and do they have the same pace? Absolutely not. What happens is you stand here, they call you through, and you rush in and you go behind the ball, and so up to the point where I'm about to pull the trigger, my tempo is already gone. My pace is quicker, I'm starting to feel a bit quicker, everything's going a bit faster. There's very, very little chance of me making a golf swing now with the same tempo that I have done in the first few holes. So when we think of tempo and the pace of swing, it has to start from here. I would really like you to think about the number of paces that you take into the ball and how long that takes. So that first one there was 3 paces. So we'll do that again. So it would be 1, 2, 3, club goes down, build my stance, couple of waggles, everything's the same. So tempo is really important, but think about your tempo much earlier than what we typically do. So let's go ahead and hit this drive. I'm going to have my shot shape that I'm playing, which is that little kind of up the left, potentially pushing up to the marker post. I've got my 3 points that I'm trying to hit to, and I'm going to have my tempo. There's 1, 2, 3, club goes in, and I'm setting my tempo for my swing. And that's drifting a fraction right of the marker post. But that is a great example there. That's just right of the marker post. That's probably hung onto the right-hand side of the fairway. Had I aimed directly down the middle of the fairway, that ball is missing on the right rough. So there's a great example of me playing my shot shape, being very specific in my visualization of my targets, and I'm making sure my tempo is good right from the moment I start my walk-in. So 3 on-course tips that you can use next time you play, which I guarantee you, if you do correctly through 18 holes, will help you hit more fairways. And like we said right back at the start, it's more fun and it makes the game a little bit easier. Really, really hope that helps. I'd love to know in the comments box if you do feel you hit more fairways doing that. Let me know. Would love to hear your thoughts, and hopefully we'll see you back here again for a future video. Thanks for watching.